It's no surprise that when we talk about affordable housing, what comes to mind is often government subsidized housing, or otherwise, government controlling cost of rent. But what we also often forget is the reality that even if we build 1 million housing units today, a lot of people will still not be able to either afford them or even have access to getting them. And when it comes to rent control, the reality on ground right now is the fact that it's still difficult for the government to control rent because it does not have a large share of the housing market. And without holding this major control or having major influence in the housing market, it is important that we look into ways that enable people by themselves access and afford housing, even if today the government stops building subsidized housing. Don't get me wrong, because I am not saying let's stop building subsidized housing. But it is important to also note that beyond dashing people free housing is the need to empower people to be able to afford and to access housing as it fits their realities. And this is why the saying, don't give me fish, teach me how to fish, makes sense. So, in order for us to teach people how to fish, to empower people to afford and access housing on their own terms, there are five fundamental conditions, five core pillars that we need to put in place. So, let's quickly run through these five core pillars, and thereafter, we look into the issues that is stopping us or holding us back from meeting these five conditions or putting them in place. The first pillar is infrastructure development. Infrastructure planning and infrastructure development is the core of everything human, everything economic, everything physical development. Without a connected system of infrastructure and without a framework to sustain and make infrastructure resilient, nothing works. So, for housing to be accessible and more affordable for people, the first thing that we need to look into is sustainable and resilient infrastructure planning and development, one that exists and operates at the intersection of physical, social, and economic development in order to meet the needs and aspirations of the people. Number two is economic empowerment. This covers increase in income and economic development because it goes without saying that even when we have adequate infrastructure in place, without income or without access to jobs and economic opportunities to earn a living, the benefits that this sustainable and resilient infrastructure provides and meets for the people will still not be able to afford them. So, to improve access to housing, it is important that we increase the earning power of people. It is no longer okay that citizens of the third biggest economy in Africa cannot even afford basic rent. And this brings me to the third pillar, which is finance, inclusive access to finance, both for the supply and also the demand side of housing. Currently, the cost of capital for every developer is so high that it is impossible for housing to be affordable for an average middle class citizen. So let's activate existing frameworks that exist in order to trickle down access to affordable finance. Frameworks like cooperative societies, NGOs, public private partnerships, land trusts, and so on and so forth that are already existing that help us identify individuals and connect them directly to financing opportunities that can help us make access to housing readily available for people. And with all this in place, without inclusive planning, which is number four, all of this would amount to nothing because to support infrastructure development and then encourage people to even participate in the housing market, as well as incentivize people to come and take this finance that we've made available, to connect all this for the good of the people and for the good of the government, is a need for an inclusive planning framework, one that thrives on participation, education, and enlightenment to distribute and cascade the results of these previous three conditions that we've met through income responsive land use, housing development, and inclusive city planning. And number five is self-help empowerment and social responsibility. Because at the end of the day, for the effect of housing interventions, housing policies to trickle down, which would happen at the grassroots, there is need to empower the people to be able to help themselves through community participation, community-led housing frameworks that enables people to leverage relationships, to leverage communal housing, to access housing even when their income is not sufficient. Let's also not forget that it takes two to tango. Even if and when government meets all other four criteria, without responsible citizens, all of these would amount to nothing. So it's equally important that the people meet the government halfway in being law abiding and performing their social responsibility. So, in summary, the five pillars are infrastructure planning, economic empowerment, improved access to finance, inclusive and participatory planning, and number five, enabling self help and social responsibility. So, five simple and very basic conditions that feels like basic common sense. And that brings us to the bigger issue of why, as simple as these things are, why is it that it's been difficult for us to put them in place? Why has it been hard for Nigerian governments to get these things right? So in 2011, a group of people in UCL created a model of a set of conditions for change and transformation to happen. They described this model as COM, where C stands for capability to change. And if there is anything we are sure of, is that Nigeria and all the states, with the size of our states and federal yearly budget, that we have all we need. We have the ability and we have the resources to make change happen. So yes, there is capability. O stands for opportunity, opportunity for change. A country with over 200 million, out of which more than half of that population are youth and young people, coupled with the flexibility that we still have in our political journey as a nation. I don't think there is a better time or a better opportunity for change than where we are right now. The third condition for change is M. M standing for motivation, motivation for change. And for this, let's assume the motivation of the people is affordable housing. The motivation for government would be increase in revenue generation. And this brings me back to the fifth pillar, which is social responsibility. Because how do we assure the government that its investment in all these things that we need to make people's lives better would return as increase in revenue for the state or for the government? How do we assure the government that its investment in infrastructure will translate to improved economy? How do we assure the government that its people will be law-abiding enough to fulfill their social responsibility in paying their taxes, in not vandalizing public infrastructure, in obeying laws and regulations of the land? And also on the flip side, how do the people know that their taxes will be spent well? How do the people know that their welfare, their interest will be protected by their elected representatives? And there is the problem in motivation, that the motivation for the people to change is not balanced and equal to the motivation for government to initiate, create, or facilitate this transformation that the people need. So without worrying about the chicken egg dynamic, which one comes first before the other, the important message in this is that we as a people need to say, this is what matters to us. This is what accountability, responsibility, and governance means to us as a people. And we hold ourselves, we hold one another accountable and responsible towards achieving these goals. If we must create change towards achieving transformation, then we must acknowledge that na so we dey do am is the biggest enemy of progress. So even though it seems like two different conversations and unconnected issues, for us to improve access and affordability of housing, it is important that we take serious social responsibility, accountability, and inclusive governance. As without this, nothing else would matter. I hope this helps.